Okay. Let's go back to we'll review a little bit the Fluxbox. So as you can see here in my HTML, I just have a container, parent container, and inside this container, I have 9 divs here like that. In my CSS, I just make everything, I restart everything or I reset everything. So I'm selecting everything before and after. I'm making the padding 0 and the margin 0. Why? Because some element by default, they have padding and margin. I want to get rid of them because I want to give them the padding on the margin I want to. And box sizing must be border box like that. If I put a width for the element, it will include also the padding and the border. Now, if I want to implement the Flexbox in any container, first I need to select the parent container here, as you can see here. Before that, even if I want to implement the Flexbox, I need first to have one container, one parent container, and inside this parent container, I can have multiple children here. And now to make this container display, the display with this container flex, all I have to do is just need to select it. And after that, I can just say display flex. That's the first important property here. Now, if I do so, now what I'm doing here, I'm just giving background to the container just to see and here width and height for each div because I want to see them. And now if I go back to my website here, when I give it a Flexbox, as you can see, if I click on it here, or I hover over it like that, it will show me my different children here. That's okay. If also I go to the layout, as you can see, it will show me all the Flexbox I have. So if you have multiple Flexbox, it will show you all the containers that you implement the Flexbox and also the grid on them. So if I hover over it, as you can see, it show me all my elements, which is okay. Now I'm gonna go back here to the parent here. Of course, the first property, now when I say display flex, it's nice, it's fine. But also I will have a box here, as you can see. If I click on this box, it shows me the most important, let's say, property for the Flexbox. The first one here, which is the direction. The direction by default here, it's row. But if I wanted to make it column, I can make it column. So if I click on column, as you can see now, my element has been organized in column way, as you can see. So all children have, like that's been organized or being styled or being laid out in a column way. So my Flexbox here now, it's the direction of my Flexbox here, it will be column, it will not be a row. And here you can use also, if you want row reverse, and row reverse, as you can see, we are, before we starting with 1, now we're starting with 9, 8, 7, 6, and so on, which will be the opposite. Also, we have column reverse. If I click on it, as you can see, also we have the ninth div first, and then the 8th one, 7, and 6, and so on, and so on, and so on. Now, most of the time, either you're gonna use flex row, which will be the default value. So if you want your element to show the Flexbox here to be a row, you don't have to add anything because by default, the direction of the Flexbox, it will be a row. But if you want to change it here, you can change it to column, depending on your need, really. That's the first important property, which is called the flex direction. Now, after that, you can add also another property, which is called wrap. So flex wrap, for example, as you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 divs here inside this container. But what if I want to, in case there is no enough space for this container, I want them to move here to the second line. I want them to wrap. If that's the case, all I have to do on the parent container, I can just say, for example, click, and I can say flex. And if I just go down here, I have something called wrap. Now, by default, here the value is no wrap, but if I want them to wrap, I can just select wrap. And if I select wrap, as you can see now here, depending on the space I have here, I will say 1, 2, 3, 4, until 7. And after that, I don't have enough space. So what will happen here for the 2 other divs, they will wrap here. So they will go down 8 and 9 if you want to. Any problem with flex direction or flex wrap so far? Yeah? No? Yes? Maybe?
Maybe possible to control the wrap. So, for example, I would like to have like 4 containers in a row and 4 in another row, or 5 in another row, or it's all the time connected with the space that we have on the screen?
It depends on the space actually. So what happened to this element here, it's depend on the space. But if you want to control them like in row and in a column, it will be a good idea actually not to use the flexbox, but use the grid. Because the grid allow you to control the element here in two directions, in row and in column. You get the idea, Agnieszka?
Okay, so
Yeah.
if I want to have like the first row, three boxes, and after that they can row as they want, so I cannot do this, it's better to use grid.
Yes, it's better to use grid. So all the time, if you want to control your element in one direction, either row or column, it's a very good idea to use the flexbox. But if you want to control your element in two dimensions, that means in row and in column, it will be a great idea to use a grid because that's the idea of the grid. I will study it now. So the grid actually, it's like two flexbox actually. Normally in the flexbox, either we're going to control them in the row or the column, but in the grid, actually, we can control them in the row and in the column. So it's just like two flexbox, simply like that, in two dimension. Yes? Yes, no?
Yes, okay, thank you.
Good. Now here we have another property which is called justify content. So justify content allow me to show this element. How can I show this element? Do I want them all to start all of them in the beginning, or I want all my element to go to the end, or I want my element to be space between them? So in order to show this property, I'm going to get rid of some divs. So let me just keep 3 divs like that, just to make it very clear. Let's click on that, and now I have only 3. Now, by default, justify content here, it's flex start. So justify content like that, by default, it will be flex start, as you can see. But if I don't want them to be start, if I want my element here to be in the center here, well, I can just say justify content center, as you can see. If I wanted them to go to the end, I can just use flex end. As you can see now, they are center in the end. If I want to have a space between them, I can use space between. And as you can see, I have space between. So space between this element and this element, or this div and this div. Remember, we do not have a lot of space now between the first element here, or before the first element here, and the last element. But what if I want also some space here, even before or at the end of the last element and before the first element? Well, in this case, what I can do here, I can say space around, and space around also give me some space around the first and the last element as well. If I want space evenly, it will make the space between the element even. So this space and this space and this space and this space, it will be even. It will be the same exactly. That's simply like that. That's the most important property here. So justify content allow me to control my content in the row direction here, in this direction here. Of course, if the flex direction is row, if the flex direction is column, it will allow me to make space between my element vertically, so in a column way. It's the same idea, just justify content. Justify content, it depends really what you want. Most of the time, most probably use either space evenly or space between or space around, depending on your need. Sometimes you may even need flex start, which means the beginning, flex end. It really depends on your need, but you have all these possibilities. Clear? Yes? No?
Yes.
Remember, all these properties implemented on the parent container, not on the children here, on the container here, on the parent container. So we've seen justify content. Now there's another property which is called align item. Let's just do that here in the center for now. Now align justify content allow me to justify my divs here vertically. I'm sorry, in a row way. But what if I want to justify them also in the horizontal way? And in order to do so, what I can do here, I can give my container some height. So let's give it a little bit height just to see. And I can say, for example, I want it to be 700 pixel. And voila. Now, I give it 700 pixel. And now what I want to here, I can not just justify my content in the row here. I can also do them in the column way. What if I want those elements here in the center? Well, to do so, we have also another property which is called align item. Align item here, I can make them center. And if I say center, as you can see now, they are being here in the center, vertically in a column way. So I can control them here. If I want them in the center, well, if I don't want them in the center, I want them in the end, I can use flex end, as you can see. And now they're in the end. If I want them in the beginning, I can use flex start if I want to. And you have multiple other property, but the most used one will be either start, end, center, or baseline. Baseline mean here, they will align according to here, the text they have, according to this, the baseline of the text and text here. But I think most of the time we use either center or flex end or flex start. Is the idea of align item is clear? Yes. Yes. But what I want to do now, I need to have some gap. And what is gap? Well, the gap here, it's a space between an item and another item, or a children and another children. What do I, if I want to have some gap between them? So to have some gap between them, actually, maybe I can make this one center, align item center as well. So we go exactly to the center, like that. Now, what I want to do, I want to add some gap. So in order to do so, I can use a gap property. A gap here, I can either add one value or two value. The first value, it will be the gap in a row way here, horizontally. So this gap here. And the second one could be also the column gap. But most of the time, because we are using row, so I can add either one value or two value. For now, I want to add gap between these elements. It's very small, the gap here. I want to make it, for example, let's make it 20 pixels. Click, and now as you can see, the gap is being a little bit more here. If I'm not happy with that, all I have to do, just double click on this property, and then I can use my arrow up key or down key. And as you can see here in my browser, they are showing the gap. I can increase the gap if I want to. Voila, see? Or I can decrease it until I am happy with it. If you add two property here, the first one, it will be for the row, the gap between the row, and the second one, it will be between the column, if you want to. Yeah, that's simply the Flexbox. Any question?
Samir, I have a question.
Yes.
For using the Flexbox, we always do in the parent, or we also do in the second div, because here you have the parent, here is the container.
Yes.
And if you make another class under the container, you can use Flex also in that part, or always in the parent?
It's always on the parent. So this property here, all the property we studied all the time, they are on the parent.
Yeah. But what if you have nested div?
But if you have a nested div, let's say this div, and this div here, so what you can do here, you can control the display of this div and then make also this div display flex, and then control the element inside this div if you want to. So this one could be display flex, and also this one could be display flex. It's not a problem.
Okay, yeah.
But you need, of course, to display them correctly. For example, what do I mean by that? Let's go here to this div here, and instead of having a text, let's say I have another div. Let's make
something like that.
3 divs. Now I have 3 divs, and I will make it 1. Actually, let me make it 1, and here let's make it 2. Let's make it 3, and I will give this div here a class again.
Yeah, something like that.
Child, not parent. Okay. Now, the container, the parent container, it's okay, it's display fine. Let me change this one. I don't want 1, 2, 3. I want, for example, 4, 5. So we distinguish between them, 5 and 6. Okay, I'm happy now with I've displayed the flex, the first container here, which is the parent. I am happy
the parent, yeah.
And now, actually, I'm not happy now. Let's justify content, make it center, and align item center. Then I will, okay, that's now I'm okay. Now what I can do also, if I go to these childs, I also have some element inside. So if I want to style them according to my need, I can click on the child here, and I can say display flex. So, and if I say display flex, well, as you can see now, they take in the same space here, and now I can control them. My element here now is here. But I don't want to display them by default, the direction of the flex here, it will be row. I don't want it to be a row. I want it to be column, for example. So I say flex direction, and I can make it column. And voila, and now my element here, as you can see, also is being display flex. So it's not a problem. If you have a div inside the div, you can also use flexbox according to your need. It's not a problem.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
my question.
Okay, let's go back, let's refresh. And let's add this property here again, justify content, and I will make it center. And let me get rid of those because they are ugly. Yep. I'm gonna remove this.
Thank you.
I don't need it. Yep. And here, let's just add one. If I save, that should be fine. Let me actually add it to CSS so I don't have to add it all the time. Display flex and say justify content. Let's make it center and align item also center because I want them to be in the center exactly, all of them. Okay, so we've seen, let's make the parent a little bit bigger. So I will give it a height, let's say 700 pixels, for example, for now. Click, voila. Now we've seen all these properties applied to the parent, as you can see. But also we have some property can be applied on the children here. And some of this property here, which is called, for example, flex grow, you don't use that a lot. But if you want one of these guys, let's say, to grow, take more space comparing to these two others, that sometimes we need it actually. So I would select the element I want to, with a child I want to, and I can say, for example, flex grow here, and I can say, for example, 3. And if I say 3 here, as you can see, this guy here is taking more space comparing to these two other divs. Remember, this property here, it must be on the child here. So flex grow, it must be on the child. We also have a flex shrink, and that means if I'm making my text like that, as you can see, this one is shrinking. That means becoming smaller. So there is some properties applied on the parent container, and there's some other property also could be implemented on the children, depending on my need. One of them is the flex grow, and another one flex shrink. Remember, you cannot use a flex grow or the flex shrink if the parent of the container is not displayed as a flex. Do you understand my point? So the parent, the container here must be display flex, then I can use flex grow or shrink on one of the children or more. I think it's clear if I am not mistaken. Yeah?
Yes.
Good. Well, we also have align self actually. So what if I want to, let me get rid of this one. What if I want to align this guy here, let's say a little bit differently. I want these 2, 3 to be in the same place, but I want this guy, specifically this guy, I wanted to align it a little bit differently. So what I can do here on this property, it could be implemented on the children, align self here I can use, and here I can just play with it. And as you can see, this element only here is being in the baseline, go to the top. It's center now, it was, I want it to be at the end, and now this element here, this div only is being moved. And this property, which is, again, this property which is called align self, it could be implemented only on the children of the container, which we already defined it as a display flex. Is the idea clear? Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
So there is most of the properties implemented on the parent container, but there's also some property we can implement it on the child container, one or child or more, depending on our need. Depend what do you want. Depend how do you want to style your website. So Rahma is asking, I think from in your check-in, you're asking a question. I don't know how to display or lay out my element correctly. Well, to do so, it's really depend on your design. How do you want to design your website? There is no one answer to your question. For example, let's say that's my website. I want these two guys here to be in the center like that. And this guy here, I want to be in the top. So in this case here, you need to think, if that's what I want to, it will be, I need to add all these elements, 1, 2, 3 inside one parent. And if I add it to one parent, then I can display it a flex. And after that, I can control now my element depending on my need. Is the idea clear?
Yes.
Good. That's simply the flex box. Remember again, the flex box allow me to, let's say, control my element either in the row direction here or the column direction, not both. One of them. either this one or either this one. Now, what if I want to display my element or I want to control my element in two directions, which will be the row and the column. In this case, we cannot implement the flexbox. There is a better way, which is a grid. And that's what we'll be studying for now. So to implement the grid here, I will need more elements. So for now, I'm just gonna create more, or I will uncomment some of these elements. And after that, we will see how can we use this guy here. So let's go here. I wanna get rid of this one. I don't want this property for now. I just want the height. And this one should be fine. I'm gonna uncomment these guys here. Voila. And now to implement the grid on this container, all I have to do, I have to go to the parent here. And in the parent, I have just to say display grid. It's simply like that. So I'm giving here display, and I can just use grid like that. Voila. On the parent container. If I say display grid, as you can see, all of them is being shown in this way. That's not what I want to, of course. So I can click on this one again. If I am choosing the grid, as you can see, I can go here, click on this one. It will show me the most important property, which is align content, justify content, align item, and justify item. And we can play with those one until we are happy. But before we do that even, now I need to know something here. When I display my element as a grid, come here again, I need to know how many column and how many row do I need. So let's say for my element now, I have how much? I have 9. So I want 3 by 3 by 3. That's what I want to. So I'll see 1, 2, 3 on one row, 4, 5, 6 in one row, and 7 and 8 and 9 in one row, like that. So what I need really, I need 3 rows. And how many column I need? I need 3 column. So to implement this one, it's quite simple. I'm just going here, and I can just say here, grid, template, column. So how many column do I need? Well, I need 3. So I can use, for example, 100 pixel, 100 pixel, 100 pixel, like that. 100 pixel, 100 pixel, 100 pixel. Of course, we can use different unit. And that means 100 pixel, 100 pixel, 100 pixels. That means I will need to have a 3 column. One, the first column, it will be 100. The second one, it will be 100. The third one, it will be 100. That's fine. I define how many column I want to. Now I need to define how many row I want to. So as you can see, now I have 3 columns. 1, 2, 3. I want to know how many rows I want. So to define how many rows I want, also in the parent container, I can just say grid template rows. And in here also, let's say I want 100 pixel, 100 pixel, and 100 pixel for now. That means I need 3 column because I have 3 value, and I need 3 rows. I have 3 value. And if I click on this one now, as you can see, that's my grid here. If I click on this grid, guys, here, now here, before I launch the element, actually, I have actually, let me click on this one to show the grid. So as you can see here in my grid, it's been divided. I cannot hover here, but notice it's been divided like that into 3 rows and 3 columns. Click. As you can notice, now it's been divided into 3 columns and 3 rows. And like that, we display our container as a grid. And now I have 3 columns and I have 3 rows. And Agnieszka, to answer your question, as you can see here, now I control how many elements I want to. Let's say I don't want 3 columns. I want actually 2 columns. Well, if you want 2 columns, you're going to remove this one here, this value, clicky, go back. And now, as you can see, now we have 2 columns actually. That's 1 column, and that's a second column. And in this case, of course, because we have more elements here, we have 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows, and 5 rows. Is the idea clear? Well, I can maybe, I want actually 3 columns, but I want 1, let's say I don't want 3 rows, I want 2 rows. Sorry. If I want 3, if I want 2 rows, then I will just add 2 value. And now if I go here, yeah, it's look like I do not have enough space. That's why it has been this way. But in reality, I should have 2 rows, not 3. So I have 3 columns and 2 rows. If I hover again, as you can see, the column here, 1, 2, and 3, and the rows I just have 1 and 2, only 1 and 2. That's all I have. That's fine. Now I can control this one. This property is not a good idea to use actually. There's another property which is called fraction. Does anyone know what is fraction? 1FR, 1FR, 1FR. So the FR fraction here, it will just take the whole space, and then after that, it will divide it into 3 parts. Each part, it will be a fraction. This is my way of saying that I want this container to be a 3 column. So this fraction and this fraction and this fraction, it will be the same. The 3 column, they will have the same space. Also, they will take the same space. If I want the rows the same, so I can just say 1 fraction, and I want 1 fraction, for example. Now I will have 2 rows and 3. So 2 rows and 2 rows, 1 row and 2 row, and after that I will have a 3 column, as you can see. So the fraction is just a unit. Most of the time we use fraction, as you can see. Now, if you want all of them to be the same, you can just use 1 fraction, 1 fraction, 1 fraction, 1 fraction, 1 fraction. But what if I want the first column to be bigger? I want to be twice size as a second, as a third column. So what I can do here, I can just say 2 fraction. And now, as you can see here, the first column is taking 2 spaces, and the second one comparing to the second one and the third one. What if I want the first row to take more space comparing to the second one? Well, I can make this one 3 fraction, for example, 3. And now, as you can see here, the row here is taking actually 3 spaces comparing to the second row. And that unit is easier to use, it's better to use. Question? 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 Now, instead of using, no question? All right, cool. Anyway, instead of repeating 1 fraction, 1 fraction, 1 fraction, CSS give us a function which is called repeat. I can just use repeat. And repeat here is how many times I want to repeat this column. Of course, if they have the same value. I want to repeat them 3 times, and I want it to be 1 fraction, so 1 FR. Instead of writing 1 FR space 1 FR space 1 FR, I can use this function which is called repeat. That means I want to repeat 1 fraction. I want 3 columns, all of them. They have the same, let's say, the same width, and I want to repeat it 3 times, so I can use just this function. Now for the row, I want to repeat it also 3 times, and I want it to be 1 fraction, so I can just use this way. Save it, and voila. And that's my element, as you can see. So again, if I click on this one, as you can see now, I have 3 rows and I have 3 columns. Is the idea clear? Yes? No? You did not understand it?
Yes.
The rest is not talking. Did you understand it or not? No? If you did not understand it, it's okay to ask. Yes, no, maybe. Okay. So again, to use the grid, all you have to do is the parent container, just display grid. And after that, what you can do to make it super simple, you can here just to align the content here, you can play with it, align content. Now, if I press on the different way here, space evenly or not, here is it will not change anything. Justify content here also, it will change nothing because I give them a specific width here. Align item, it will be in the vertical way. So I can make it center. I can make it in the top here as a start. I can make it as the end. And as you can see, I can control my element to be like that, and like that. Justify content, actually, it will be in the row way. And also, if I click on these ones, they should be moved here. But they're not moving, I think, because we've already defined a specific width. So I give them already a specific width. And that's the reason here. I just give all of them a width and height specific width. That's why they're not moving. If I remove these widths, they will be moving as well. But if I will not be able to see them. I think that's great, if I'm not mistaken. There's another property here, which is called gap. Let's click on this one. I can use also gap to make some gap between the column and the rows. I can here add two properties. So the first one here, it will be all the time for the rows, the gap between the rows. And the second one, it will be between the column. For example, I want the gap between the rows to be 20 pixel. And now here, and if I want it between the row, I want to be 100 pixel, for example. Well, so now if I hover over the gap, as you can see, the space between the rows is very small, as you can see, but between the columns, as you can see, which is 100 pixel, it's much bigger comparing to the rows, if you want space between them. What other property do we have? We have justify content, and justify content here. So click on that. If I say justify content, also I have center, I have flex in, flex start, so I can play with them here. But they are not moving because I give them specific width. That's the reason why they are not moving. I also have align item just like the flex box. If I say align items, they will try to align them in the vertical way. So if I say center, now they'll be moved to the center. If I say baseline, they will be moved to the baseline. If I say end, it will be in the end. If I say start, it will just move to the top. So it's not very different from the flexbox, actually. These two properties, which justify content and what is that align item? It's very similar to the flexbox. Yeah. I think that's everything here, if I am not mistaken. Actually, there's one other property here, which is, what was this property? Justify content. We have something called align content. Align content here. Align content, it's used with the grid here. And align content also, it kind of move all these elements here, all the element you have, they shift them to the right or the left, all of them. But of course now, because they are talking the whole space and I give them a lot of space, I can add them. So maybe it will be a good idea actually to go back here and add them 100 pixel, 100 pixel, it will be much better. 100 pixel. In here, let's add 100 pixel. Clicking, and now I have them less space. So now if I go back again and I say align content here, align content, and now here if I move it, as you can see now all of them, they move shift to the center. If I want all of them to be down here, I can just say end. If I want to the end also flex, end flex starts the same idea. So what align content it will do, it will shift or move all your element, all the grid here, either to the top or the bottom or the center, to the left or to the right, depending on your need. Yeah, I think that's everything related to the basic of the Flexbox, but you need to try it yourself. So if you did not try it yourself, actually, you will not understand it. Try to use some container here and try to implement it yourself. And yeah, if you have a question, of course, you can let me know. Any question? No, actually, I want to stop the recording.